Beautiful statue of Mahatma Gandhi a mile away from here. So, plus, I was on a vacation a few years ago and I found this beautiful t-shirt, I think in Lima, Peru. And there was something in Spanish, I grabbed it and I wear it every day, every year on Gandhi Jayanti. So it was a beautiful reminder to go see his statue today and just think. And the one thing, when I went to Sabarmati Ashram, the one thing that stands out to me is be the change you want to see in the world. And that is so important, right, for all of us. So want to welcome you to the Indiaspora Philanthropy Summit in partnership with IPA. It's a great day. We got a huge agenda and lots of people this morning. But I want to start by saying one thing before I hand it off to Nalini. And that is, today we did a press release, which all of you will be privy to soon. And the press release said, Indian Americans have contributed over $3 billion to institutions of higher learning in the US in the past 17 years. It's a huge number when you think of giving, right? Giving to education is top of our list. We all have 2, 3, 4 degrees on our resume, right? I don't know, Shweta, how many degrees do you have? One? Oh my God. She's got to go for higher studies. So, but $3 billion, and you're going to meet Desh Deshpande later today as well. Is Desh here yet? I don't know if he's come, but I mean, he alone has given $100 million to MIT, right? There have been so many big donations and small donations to universities. I just want to start this whole day of giving by saying Indian Americans are doing great. Indian Americans need to be a national asset in the United States, okay? We all need to project ourselves that we're a national asset to this country. We are 1% of the population, we pay 6% of the taxes. So if people tell us to go home, we'll take our 6% and gladly go away, right? So we have to be forceful. We are 75,000 doctors, we treat 30 million patients a year, okay? 22,000 professors. We teach 3 to 5 million college kids a year, okay? We have 36,000 yoga studios in the United States, more than India, okay? We do all these things for America. We should be a national asset and we have to project ourselves. So don't be afraid to lean in when people say go home or what do you guys do? Talk about the $3 billion we've given to universities. Talk about doctors in our community who serve 30 million patients in the US, okay? Do all this stuff, be forceful. I just want to leave you with that message and hand it off to my conspirator in crime, Nalini Saligram, who's a Founder Circle member of Indiaspora, runs a nonprofit herself. Go ahead, Nalini.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. MR, it's a real privilege for me to be standing next to you to say welcome. I don't get to do this very often, so it's a big deal. Today, I'm representing both Indiaspora and India Philanthropy Alliance, the two groups that have organized the summit. It's so wonderful to see such a great turnout in San Francisco, first thing in the morning. They told us everyone comes early in San Francisco, and it's proof you're all here. Thank you. We're at capacity. Days like today help us renew our focus and commitment to philanthropy. That's why it's good to have days set aside to think about and reflect and renew our vows to do more and get inspired. And you will get lots more statistics to add to what MR just said. You know, you will learn how the diaspora is actually stepping up and giving more. And it's all fabulous news. It's really great. We as a community have arrived in the United States. We are owning up to our responsibility and we are delivering on all fronts, including philanthropy. The other aspect of days like today is it helps us calibrate, okay? Okay, where are we? What did we commit to doing? Are we there? This is a day for self-reflection as well. Personally, as a community, as an India Philanthropy Alliance, as the Indiaspora group, what have we achieved? It's a good day to think about that. So, and you will all day today think about that as well. One other aspect of today I want to bring up is that right at the beginning, this group of organizers had thought about making this an unconference type conference, okay? We didn't quite achieve an unstructured, completely agenda-less day, but you will see a difference as the day proceeds. There's a lot more time for interaction, and there's lots of ability to, and time set aside for connecting with people here, because that's an important part. Ask questions, please. The panelists expect you to ask provocative questions, so please do. And then the other thing I just want to say is that the spirit of camaraderie between both organizations and the people on that committee has been remarkable. I have enjoyed the process of working with everybody, and hats off to the volunteers and to the staff members who have really, really stepped up and accepted the challenge. It's not easy to pull off an event like this in an official building. So thank you all for especially the Amita and Nirmala for the heavy lifting you did. Thank you.
Thank you, Nalini. And now I want to call upon my neighbor in San Francisco, Dr. Srikar Reddy. Every time I meet him, he would say, "We moved to a new consulate. When are you going to have an event?" Right? And so we said we'll stage the biggest event in the consulate so far in San Francisco with over 150 people in attendance. I don't know what the fire marshal regulations are. I won't ask. But I want to welcome Dr. Srikar Reddy to make his remarks.
I'm Rangaswamy, founder and chairman, Indiaspora, Nalini Saligram from IPA, distinguished guests, philanthropists, speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, namaste, happy Dasra. So on behalf of the Consulate General of India in San Francisco, it is indeed a great privilege and honor to welcome you all to the Indiaspora IPA Philanthropy Summit. I think I would like to extend a special welcome to who have come all the way from all parts of the USA, and also some of them who have come from India. So this is one of the, as MR mentioned, this is one of the big events we are hosting at the consulate. So we have moved to the consulate in November last year. And in fact, today is also auspicious for two reasons. First is we are celebrating the festival of Dasra to mark the victory of good over evil. It's a big festival in India. And also today we are celebrating the birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, the father of our nation. So in fact, today it is the 156th birth anniversary. I was also happy to know that the Indian Philanthropy Alliance was also established 6 years ago on the same day, on 2nd. Yes. So it is also 6th anniversary for the IPA. And in fact, the birthday of Mahatma Gandhi is also celebrated as the International Day of Non-Violence. It is a United Nations recognized International Day of Non-Violence to promote a culture, especially to enhance peace, tolerance, understanding and non-violence all over the world. Especially, we know the globe is in turbulent times. So coming to the spirit of giving, as you know, Mahatma Gandhi used to emphasize on Sarvodaya, which is upliftment of all, everybody in the society. I think this is a very good day that we are meeting here. And especially like as MR mentioned, so the Indian diaspora is very strong in the US. Now it is over 5 million. As today they have issued a press release that only for the education in the sector. So Indian diaspora members have contributed over $3 billion to various US universities. And also like the IPA, there are I think over 21 not-for-profit organizations that have come together to like do philanthropy work in the areas of education, healthcare, women empowerment, and maybe water and also sanitation in India. Actually, the Dana and Seva, So these two concepts are a part of the Indian ethos. So we have all grown up in India hearing two stories from a mythology, especially you must have heard about Dana Karna, who has given his armor to Indra, despite knowing that once he donates that thing, he can easily be killed in the war. And also, one more example comes to my mind is of Shibi Chakravarti, who gave his own flesh to save a dove from an eagle. So these are the kinds of stories, I think, it is a part of the Indian ethos. But after coming to US, the state of Utah also comes under the jurisdiction of the San Francisco Consulate. There I was surprised to know that the community members there donate 10% of their, whatever they earn, to the church there. And also, most of them also like gives many hours every day and also every month. I think each one of them, according to the age they are, so they give number of hours. Some of them post-retirement, they're doing voluntary work for maybe every day some 7-8 hours. They're giving the time for voluntary work. So India, I think we require not mere charity, but long-term empowerment of people. So we would like you to focus on empowerment of people in India. Just to give an example, recently I was in India for a month. So I visited one of the poorest districts in the state of Telangana called Bhopalpalli. So there I happened to visit a millet processing center run by 20 women. So this is being supported by a not-for-profit organization, and this allowed 20 women who were earlier unemployed or only homemakers. So now they are just procuring millet from the nearby town called Warangal. So they are processing it, and also they are also preparing some semi-finished food products, and they are selling not only in the state of Telangana but also in remaining parts of India. So this empowerment, this kind of empowerment is important rather than only simply merely giving some doles or some kind of just doing charity. Especially, we also request you, some of you are doing good job in the skilling and promoting innovation and entrepreneurship, especially in the Indian students. So there is a huge potential, especially in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I urge each one of you to consider, especially the people in the Bay Area and also in the US, to give your time, because India now is the youngest country in the world. So we have the average age of India is 29 years. So the youth population is very aspirational. So they need some guidance. Because now we have these technologies where you can have virtual meetings and also even through WhatsApp calls. If you can give some 1 hour every week or so, you can select some students who are studying in your hometown or in the same school where you have studied, so that they can also aspire to become like you. So that is important thing, because if you inculcate the spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship, so they can create companies and they can create employment. So this is the thing we are looking from each one of you, not mere simply providing some financial support to some organization in India, but just to give an example, recently I visited Warangal, my hometown. So there is a textile park. The government has set up a textile park. We have big companies which have come up like Keytex. So they are looking for skilled labor. So most of the women, they are getting employment there. So they are looking at skilling and tailoring, for example. So we would like each one of you to focus on empowerment, especially skilling, and also how you can ensure that each one of Indian citizen can get a productive and gainful employment. So this is what we are looking from the not-for-profit organizations from the US, and also Indian NGOs can also work with the US-based organizations and individuals, especially in this thing. So before conclusion, I would like to inform about a recent initiative by the embassy and the consulates. As you know, Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji holds the Indian diaspora in high regard. So he calls you as ambassadors of India. And in fact, to enhance the accessibility and also to bring our services close to all of you, now government have opened 2 new consulates, one in Boston and one in Los Angeles. And also, in addition to opening of these 2 new consulates, So we have opened the Indian Consular Application Centers in 9 new cities. Earlier, these application centers, which are run by our outsourcing agency like VFS, they are only based in the cities where the embassy and the consulate is located. Now we have started the centers in 9 new places like San Jose. We have one in Dallas. We have one in Orlando, Raleigh, Columbus, and Detroit, and also in the new places like Boston and Los Angeles. So with this, we'll be now having 17 cities where all the Indian diaspora and also the US citizens can avail services like passport, visa services, OCI, and also we also outsourced the attestation service also. There is no need to, if somebody wants a power of attorney, simply they can go to the nearest this consular application center. And one more important thing is these centers will be now functioning on Saturdays also, so that there is no need for you to waste your weekday workday. You can also avail the services over the weekend. And also somebody is unable to fill the application form, so they can simply take the documents and go to the centers. Even the application filling will be done free of cost at these centers. So these are some of the new initiatives by the Government of India to serve the members of the Indian diaspora and also the US citizens in the US. So again, I welcome you all and wish you a very fruitful deliberations. And I conclude by wishing you all good health, happiness, and prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Consul General. That was wonderful. I'd like to welcome Alex Counts now, the Executive Director of IPA, and Shobha Vishwanathan, the Executive Vice President of Indiaspora. Welcome, Shobha and Alex.
Who's that handsome guy? Oh, my God. You look fabulous in a sari, by the way. Wow.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you, Amita, MR, Nalini, Your Excellency. It is just great to be here. It is especially meaningful for me to be here on Gandhi Jayanti because, and I'll tell you why, you may have noticed that I'm not Indian. But, my love affair with India, I lived in the subcontinent for 6 years. I speak Bengali. It's been going on for a long time. It all began when I was in 11th grade and I saw the movie Gandhi. And it touched something so deep inside me that I've been following this pathway related to India ever since. And so, I actually had a chance once to talk to Ben Kingsley, who played Gandhi in that movie, and I told him something. I'd never said these words before, they just came out. I said, Mr. Kingsley, I never cry in movies, except for the 15 times I saw Gandhi, which is true. So anyway, a lot of us have been to a lot of conferences, and I don't know about you, I find the traditional conference a little frustrating. And it's because there isn't a lot of pathways for the audience, for everyone to participate, because we have leaders here we're all leaders. We all could be up here on stage. And so, in fact, our friends at DASRA did what I call a traditional conference, as well as you can possibly do it last week. A lot of us were there. But we decided we were going to try something a little different. We were going to try to use technology in ways that could get all of you involved. And who knows, hopefully we'll succeed. And so let me just give one example of what we're going to do with something. So in 2018, when the summit, the first Philanthropy Summit was held, IPA was just being born at the time, and I went to Sanjeev and I said, if you're going to have a summit rather than a conference, you should have a communique. If the G7 have a summit, they have a communique. Why don't we? And Sanjeev kind of patted me on the head and he said, young man, I have a serious conference to run, but nice idea. But those of you who know me, I'm kind of persistent. And so we're going to have a communique from this summit. And I don't know if we could bring it up on the screen. But basically what we've done is we've drafted something that will serve as the communique, but we're going to ask all of you to help us write it. And we're going to be sending out to you through, I guess, email and Slido, which you'll hear about in a second, a link so that you can go on to our communique and write about it. Because I couldn't write about what this or that session would be because they haven't happened yet. But we've created a framework, and I hope that all of you write at least a sentence in this. And by the way, if you can't get online, write your feedback on a scrap of paper and hand it to me, and I'll get it in there some way. Before I turn it over to Shobha, I'll just say that I'd like to ask if the staff and the board of IPA could just stand up for a moment, and we could just recognize you who are some incredible people. Thank you. And Jay, just stay standing. Jay Segal, who's our chairman-elect, and it's also his family's foundation is the main sponsor of this, the biggest sponsor of this summit. So thank you. Today is also the launch of India Giving Day, the 4th India Giving Day campaign. Many of you are very involved in it. If you're not, talk to one of the people who just stood up, and they'll tell you about India Giving Day. And I just lastly, it has been an enormous, enormous pleasure to work with the Diaspora on this summit. And we've been meeting, just the number of meetings, we've taken bad ideas and thrown them out. We've taken good ideas and made them great. And we've all done it in a collaborative spirit. So Shobha, over to you.
Thank you, Alex. I know it sounds very repetitive because Nalini and Alex have also mentioned it. It's been such a pleasure doing this as a joint effort with IPA and the teams and the staff, and all of us are happy to think of round 2, which is saying something, because when you plan things together, you're almost waiting to be done usually. So yeah. Having said that, again, delighted to have 150 plus people. We won't specify numbers given that we were told 150, but we are very excited by the response that we got from our community for this. Part of the reason, as Alex mentioned, is it's not just the people who are going to step up to speak, but we truly think we have a group of change makers, overused word these days, but it's ecosystem builders who are in the room who are going to make this a successful event for us. And we encourage you to join and be as participative as possible. Slido will be introduced to you shortly, but like it happened at the Meta conference not long ago, there may be glitches. Bear with us. The intentional is to be participatory, and we'll find ways to make it work. But I think we are all approaching this in the spirit of we are all part of this conversation, and how do we build this together? Again, I think I'll take a moment to invite the Indiaspora members in the room to stand up, because again, your support makes it possible for Indiaspora to do the work that we do. Indiaspora team and members who are in the room, kindly stand up and be recognized. I think it'll be wonderful to have all of you. Thank you all for being here. And I think back to you, Alex. I think we're bringing,
Yes.
yeah.
So we realized as a planning committee that in order to get people involved, technology would be key. And I knew that I wasn't the one to drive that process. But fortunately, one of the stars on our planning committee really knew this app called Slido, which we're going to be using today. And she's going to walk you through it. So please join me in welcoming Neha Gupta from the Teach for India US. Come on.
All right, so we're in Bay Area, so it can't be non-tech. So as we started the day with the quote, right, be the change you wish to see in the world. One of the changes I'd love to have is equal voice, right? Equity is something I think almost everybody in this room is striving for in different ways, in different sectors, in different aspects. And that's what we hope to achieve in this room. So the speakers in the front are not the only ones sharing their views. If I could request AV to go ahead and pull up the screen for me, and if I could request all of you to point your phone cameras at the screen, or if you're averse to using cameras, feel free to manually type slido.com in your browser. You should be able to go in right on to, it should open a screen, which is gonna change in just a sec. Again, I really appreciate everybody joining us in this, because throughout the day, we're gonna continue to use this. So if you'll just leave that open in your browser window, that would be amazing. If you've not gotten the QR code, it will continue to be up on the left, so feel free. But there are going to be a bunch of interactions we're going to try through the day. We'll keep it simple, but we want to, as I mentioned, hear your voice, right? So multiple choice is an interaction you will see quite often in the experience. I am Neha. I'm the Executive Director for Teach for India US, and so it would be remiss not to use the opportunity to share a little bit more about what we do as well. So if you can take a pass, right? We talked about young people and the average age being 29-year-old in India, right? So mobilizing the youth and creating leaders out of those youth, empowering them to drive change, has a real multiplier effect. And that is something we have observed in our work as well. So the Teach for India fellow alums, there are about 5,000 of them. Do you want to take a guess at how many students they reach today in the last 15 years that we've had the movement going? And you can just click on the answer right off, and you will see that your responses are driving some of the behavior and change here. So if you would please, again, just go ahead and click on whatever you think the response is. And again, if you have not joined yet, please feel free to just point your camera at the QR code, and that will get you all set. So it's always, thank you, by the way, I give credit for the room not thinking we're just at 5 million. I will happily tell you the reach is actually 50 million, right? So if you think about the multiplier effect on that, so how many people got it right? I think we could do a show of hands and a good clap for you. So good job, right? But there is, I can't emphasize it enough, right? Every person you empower has the ability to take literally 100, 1,000 more people with them. So please definitely keep that in mind. We are going to also do some open text interactions through the day. So this is a quick one. You will see the question has changed on your screen. It is, which session in the agenda are you most excited about today? Now, you may not have looked at the agenda, so I won't tell anybody that that's a problem. But if you do want to look at the agenda really quick, on the top left of your screen, you will see 3 horizontal bars. If you click on those 3 horizontal bars, you will see in there the ability to see the agenda, the draft communique that Alex was talking about. So feel free to reference that anytime throughout the day. It will be available for you, right? And again, as you can see, you can just type in your answer. So there will be open text responses. By the way, no pressure on the debate, just saying. You're definitely getting some of the top billing on the screen, right? But again, the idea very much is we want to hear from you, right? We want this to be an interactive, open conversation throughout the day. So some of it will be structured like this. Some of it will be unstructured. So the last thing I'm going to request everybody to do is, if you look in your screen on the phone, left of where it says polls, it says Q&A. If you would go ahead, and you can feel free to keep responding here, by the way, we can come back to it in just a second. But if you will go ahead and click on Q&A, that will also be open throughout the day. And you can drop in any question or comment that you want to add to a panel. And a lot of our panelists will be coming back to Q&A as well to look at those questions and answer them for you. So if I could request Avi to please go ahead and show Q&A. It should be at the bottom of your screen. And switch us, thank you. All right. So thank you to all the people who got us going right off the bat. So as you can see here, the questions are by default anonymous unless you choose to say, I want to share my name, right? So you can ask provocative questions. We will moderate them if they get a little too crazy, but we're hoping everybody's in a good space, right? But this is the idea. We want this to be truly our time together as a collective. Because when we bring every voice into the mix, that is when we truly get equity and some of the most powerful outcomes possible. So can we switch back to the poll? We'll take one final look at where we ended up. All right, so we're somewhere between, there's quite a few actually, and there are a lot of people excited to network. So again, please keep those voices going. You will continue to see us reference Slido in all the sessions across. So please just don't close out of the browser. It will automatically keep changing for you throughout the day. If by any chance you do end up closing out, you can always just point at that QR code and it'll bring you right back. Sounds good? Everybody okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Neha. We are super excited to try this out. I hope you also enter into the spirit of it. Other than making sure that we sell a stack of T-shirts from Lima, Peru for next one for fundraiser for all of us. That's the idea we walk away with. We get to try Slido away right off. The plan here is to bring up 3 of our IPA organizational leads to come pitch an idea, and we want you to vote, and the pitches are going to be 90 seconds or less. And the idea is that you vote, and the person with the most votes will be the 3 p.m. panel today. So listen carefully. I think they have packed their agendas with what they want to share. First up is Ushri Roy from Vincent Ferrere Foundation. Please come on.
Thank you, Shobha. Yeah. So I'm Ushri Roy, and our panel is about how youth are driving the future of philanthropy. Why this topic is timely? Because a recent Blackboard study revealed that 80% of the Gen Z, 80% of the Gen Z are already attached to one cause or other, and they are supporting. And mainly they support through online platform or through peer-to-peer network. And interestingly, 1/3 of them are willing to give more in the coming years. And if we just look ourselves, during India Giving Day, this India Giving Day in 2025, more than 400 youth fundraisers supported 37 organizations. And that number is just going to increase. To discuss how to inspire youth giving, our panel, we have an incredible panel. Niharika Srivastava, who is president of Desh Foundation and always inspire nonprofits how to use technology to scale impact. We have Meenakshi Mahajan from Deputy Director of India Philanthropy Alliance, who is the key person to engage all the nonprofit organizations who are participating in India Giving Day and about how to engage with youth and community. And we have Suhani Jalota. She is a research faculty at Stanford, and she is the one who founded Maina Mahila when she was 19. So join us to discuss how to inspire youth giving, be part of the change, be part of the future of philanthropy, and together we can multiply our impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri. I forgot to mention that these pitches are new to all of us, including the planning committee, so this is really coming fresh to you as it comes to us too. Next up, I'm going to invite Shannon from Anthara to come up and speak, and I also have to say a special thanks to Shannon because she has had to step up in the last minute because Preeti Nandanaru, who was supposed to be with us, was unwell and not able to join, and Shannon has been a phenomenal sport in coming up with an idea and joining us today.
Thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Shannon Paz. I'm with Antara International, and I'm thrilled to pitch a panel today about leadership, and specifically women in leadership. True leadership today, we know, isn't about climbing the ladder. It's about uplifting others. It's about using one's voice to amplify those who are often unheard. This panel brings together remarkable women whose careers span corporate consulting, nonprofit leadership, philanthropy, philanthropic advising, and the arts. Women who have harnessed their platforms, not only to drive social change, but also while navigating the complex roles of professional, mother, and community advocate. Together, they'll share their personal stories, the moments that ignited their social impact, the challenges they faced along the way, and how they've used their voice to uplift those that have been marginalized. Their communities remind us that social impact can be a thread that's woven through every chapter of life. We will hear from Ashita Ganguly, writer, director, singer, whose career has spanned management consulting and nonprofit leadership, Sharmila Rao Thakur, philanthropic advisor and nonprofit consultant with a specialty in the diaspora, Vidya Prakash, whose career has spanned management consulting, nonprofit leadership, family philanthropy, and running a business. We'll explore questions that we don't often ask enough. Can women engage with philanthropy in ways that challenge and reshape the traditional power dynamics? What does it look like to make career choices that honor both ambition and well-being? And what role does women's health, which is often overlooked, play in sustaining our impact across all areas of life? Whether you're building your own path or reimagining your purpose, this conversation offers more than inspiration. It's a call to lead with empathy, to act with intention, and to use our voices not just for ourselves, but to build bridges for others. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. And finally, I ask Neha to step back up again to pitch her idea.
I have to say, I'm almost personally going to vote for that one, maybe. So that's probably not a very good pitch to make right up front. But so as I started off, right, scale is something that is important to me personally when I think about the multiplier effect. But it's a real question in philanthropy, right? Is it about breadth or is it about depth? Should scale really matter in making philanthropic decisions? And that is what really the panel is focused about. And To have the audience weigh in, we have Vipul Khanna, who is an ex-CEO, currently a board member on a variety of philanthropic organizations, as well as a leading sort of new age thinker, if you will, right? He's a typical profile of the tech corporate Indian diaspora member that has done well. We have a civil society leader in Navya Kinapelli who leads education equity, right? And she's kind of come through her journey on philanthropy, both from a person who's contributed her time as well as her money. And it would be interesting to hear, is it about names or is it about numbers, right? Because I think we all do that math when we try to think about what is the return on the investment that we make in any organization. And then the third person that will be joining us is a member of the Gen Z community, somebody who's taken a decision to not be in the regular consumer sector and say, I'm going to dedicate my time to public policy. And so John V. Udani is a recent graduate from CMU's Public Policy Office and is currently working on using data for philanthropy. So there are three very different perspectives, but all come from, honestly, the worlds we all live in. And it would help us answer the question that, is it really depth or breadth? And what is really the value of scalability in the models we look at? Thank you.
Private planes to go fight poverty. And we have seen the other extreme, which is sort of the jugaad view of how people can work on a shoestring budget and think they can change the world. Now, neither extremes make a lot of sense, but the reality is that they are people, individuals, and I think world-changing individuals like Mackenzie Scott, who just gives money without even asking the question, right? Which is, what are you going to do with it, right? She just writes a check. She did it for Meals on Wheels. She did it on, YWCA. Because if an organization has been running for 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, you don't really have to ask them a question of what are you going to do with my money, right? They just need scale, right, as we just heard. So this topic of overhead, do all of you know what overhead means? Okay. So overhead literally means having Wi-Fi, right? Having a printer to print your brochures, your facilities. Cost for fundraising, right? So one of the things that I like to underwrite is just cost of fundraising, right? People would want to do a fundraise, but they don't want to either pay for a place, or they don't want to pay for the food, or they'll order cheap wine where people have a headache right after. So the cost of underwriting overheads is a big issue. So I've been on the board of Maryland, University of Maryland for a long time, and we just ended up finding someone who actually went to University of Maryland, but they never asked him for money. And you know what his name was? Sergey Brin. Okay? And Maryland never reached out to him, right, until after he'd become who he was. And his parents still taught, right, or just retired from University of Maryland, right? They're very famous professors there. Another good example of not having enough funds to raise, we were looking to build out a brand new computer science department, and the CS department there is one of the largest undergrad CS for women. We have the largest amount of women in the CS at University of Maryland. And for some reason, the last name happened to be different of this one individual. So we had a little fundraising right here in San Francisco, and we realized that the person who actually showed up ended up just having sold his business to Meta, then Facebook, who built the VR Oculus headset, right? And he ended up giving the first $250 million to build our building, right? But we'd never reached out because we did not want to spend the money to fly out to San Francisco, have a little small event like this, have him bring his wife and their compadres who are former alums just to ask for money. Right? So just one small piece of help helped raise our first grant of $250 million. So what we're going to do here today, and I'd really like for you to do this, okay? The win would be, now those of you who today evaluate charities based on low overheads, could you raise your hands, please?
So I'll get started. My name is Neil Makija, and I serve as an elected official in Pennsylvania. I'm a county commissioner for Montgomery County. It's a county of 900,000 people, third largest in the Commonwealth, and I was the first Indian American ever in the history of Pennsylvania to be elected at the local level in this fashion. And when I first thought about politics, of course, it wasn't really in the picture. You know, my dad was a physician. My mom worked with him as well, and he delivered 8,000 babies in our small coal and steel town. His story was actually documented by Indiaspora, so thank you, Mr. Sanjeev, and the whole team for your work at lifting up these stories. But I first ran for office there, and I ran as a Democrat, and although my dad delivered 8,000 babies, unfortunately, most of them were Republicans, so I had no chance. And I still learned a lot from that first experience. What am I doing here? I'm going to tell you in a second. So in the period of time when I lost, I had a lot of time to think, because it's been 10 years since that first run. And I met someone actually at Indiaspora, someone who had run for office a couple times, lost, but was running for Congress in Illinois. And he gave me some very good advice about being persistent and being resilient and being committed to the community and sticking with it. And you know, it was a period of time in which I had to figure out what I wanted to do to stay involved, and I actually became executive director of an organization, Indian American Impact. We help people run for office, get engaged, and we've gone in this period of time since 2016 from having 1 member of Congress before that and 7 in the state legislatures to now our community has 6 members of Congress and 53 in the state legislatures. So we've gone a big way, big distance. And this year we had a summit in DC. We award what's called the Dalip Singh Sond Award. He was the first Indian American member of Congress from here, actually in California in the 50s. And we think about, there's now 350 actually elected officials if you include state, local, school boards that we're tracking. But we think about elected officials and who really embodies what we think is best in our public servants, and who also embodies what's best about our community, who understands the importance of the American dream that our families were able to live, how we keep that alive, and how we give back through our service. And this year, the award, the awardee for that award, the Dalip Singh Sond Award, was someone who I met in 2016 who gave me that advice to stick with it, to stay committed, and that is a congressman from the 7th District of Illinois, Raja Krishnamoorthi, and he's here today with us. And I'll tell you a little bit about Raja before he speaks, but he was actually the first Indian American, not just elected in Illinois, but on the East Coast in the history of the United States. And he's someone who is also the first in Congress to serve as the ranking member of a committee. He's the ranking member of the House China Committee, very important for our country's future and foreign policy. And you know, has been a fighter on so many different issues. I could tell you, I've introduced Raja, I think, 3 times this month. So I could tell you this is many stories. I saved some of the other ones for the other intros. But the short story is he is relentless in his pursuit of serving the public, in his pride in being Indian American and ensuring that we enfranchise our whole community, mobilize our community around the country. And to me, there's really no example of an elected official who has done more to advocate, not just for the needs of our community, but for the needs of the whole country in tapping in to the talent of the Indian American community and all that we can do to serve. And I'm so thrilled, especially at this time, you know, it can feel the U.S.-India relationship is in a very challenging place. We need leaders who understand the importance of that relationship, the importance of democracy and all the challenges that we have heard about today in the philanthropic sector in terms of climate and the issues that we can tackle together through cooperation globally. And I know that we will be better served on all of those issues if what happens in 5 months comes true, and something we've been thinking about a long time, which is that Raja Krishnamoorthi could be the first U.S. Senator from Illinois and the first Indian American in the country, the only one right now, at least. So please welcome someone who's a friend, a role model to all of us in our community, and really a leader at ensuring that we all represent our country and do the best for it and tap into the talent of our community. So that's Raja Krishnamoorthi. Thank you. Thank you. Of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's an honor to be with you. As I like to say, it's an honor to be any place they can pronounce my name correctly. This is a true story. I am not making this up. I'm really not making this up. When I first ran for office in Illinois, I said, "Hi, my name is Raja Krishnamoorthi." And the person in Chicago looked right back at me and said, "Roger Christian Murphy. Very nice to meet you." And they said, "I didn't know the Irish made it to India." And so, in any case, it's wonderful to be with you. I want to observe those 3 rules of public speaking: be short, be sweet, and be silent. And so 3 points. First of all, can you give a big round of applause to MR, Sanjeev, and all of these wonderful people who put on today's event? And thank you for that lovely introduction, Neil. He has introduced me like 3 times. We should go on the road more. This is really something. Thank you for that, and thank you for your service. And Mr., I call him MR. He is the most networked person in the Indian American community in the country. Is that right? I mean, this guy is so wired that, he does it for the right reasons. I mean, if you have a question, if you have a problem, if you need something, you dial 1-800-MR. All of a sudden, he springs into action and good things happen. And I want to say also a special thank you to the Consulate General. Where's Mr. Reddy? Thank you so much for hosting us. I really appreciate the opportunity to visit your beautiful new offices, so thank you. And thank you to all of you. The second point I want to make is Indian Americans have arrived. They have arrived in this country in so many different ways. I've said these statistics before, but every time I say them, I get goosebumps. If you look at the 2020 census, you quickly discover how much progress the Indian American community has made in this country. It is the fastest growing ethnic minority in this country. It is the best educated. It is the most prosperous, and it's some of the best looking people I've ever seen. Okay, that was not in the census. I'm embellishing a little bit. But now I'm going to borrow from Indiaspora's own statistics. They did a report recently, and it's really telling how much progress the community has made. 10% of all doctors are Desi. 10% of all patents are owned by Desis. 60% of all hotel rooms are owned by Desis. 28 of the last 34 national spelling bee champions were Desi. I was not one of them. But if you want to spell success, you spell it D-E-S-I, Desi. Am I right about that? Desis have arrived in this country. Desis have arrived, and now, as your summit in its own title kind of summarizes kind of the next phase, how do we give back? How do we make sure that our success translates into success for the country and for the planet, for that matter? And so let me just tell you a little bit about my journey and why what you're doing today and talking about the issues of philanthropy and giving back matters so much to me. I'll tell you a little bit about my journey. So I was born in India. I was made in India, Mr. Reddy. I was made in India. I came to this country when I was 3 months old to Buffalo, New York, which is where my father was studying engineering at the University of Buffalo. And things were going great until suddenly the recession of the 1970s hit us like a ton of bricks. My father lost his income, but thanks to the generosity of the American people, we were allowed to move into public housing and food stamps. So I spent about half of my childhood in those 2 life-sustaining programs. And then after that, my father was able to get on his feet and then get a great job in, of all places, Peoria, Illinois. They loaded up the U-Haul and started driving and driving and driving until they reached Peoria. And that's where we entered the middle class. And pretty much every night at the dinner table, my father would say, think of the greatness of this country. Think of the greatness of this country, and whatever the two of you do, my brother Ram and me, just make sure this country is there for the next families who need it. And so that became the North Star of my personal compass. So fast forward through college and law school, I came back to Illinois. I helped to start the anti-corruption unit of the Illinois Attorney General's office, and business was good. Business was very... This was during the Rod Blagojevich years. Every contract was cooked. Every appointment was rigged. And so it was full employment for prosecutors throughout the state. So I learned how not to do government in that position. And then after that, I went back to the private sector. I ran a tiny company for about 7 years. And then I got elected to my current position as a U.S. Congressman for the 8th District of Illinois. And 5 terms later, almost a decade, I'm still pursuing that mission statement given to me by my parents, which is make sure this country is there for the next families who need it. And yes, you can clap. That is my mission statement. That is my why. That is my why. And I believe that's your why. I believe that's everybody here thinks about that a lot, especially now. Because let's just look at the challenges that are facing us today. Look at my own personal story. That legal immigration system that enabled us and our families to come here is being actively dismantled every single day. The public housing and food stamps that enabled us to survive is now on the chopping block today. And the public schools in Peoria, Illinois, and that enabled most of us in this room to kind of have access to the American dream, are under assault as we see, unfortunately, a government seek to close the Department of Education. So we in this room, in my humble opinion, I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, or Independent, I think we're faced with one question, in my humble opinion, which is what kind of a government do we want? What kind of a government do we want? Do we want a government that's there for those fighting to make it? Or do we want a government that primarily caters to those who have it made? And I know my answer, and I think it's true for you too. We always want a government that cultivates the American dream for everyone. Regardless of who you are, regardless of whether you're working, poor, middle class, you're growing a business, or regardless of the color of your skin, how you pray, whom you love, or the number of letters in your name. There are 29 in mine. We want the government that enables everyone, the racial, religious, ethnic, minority, immigrant with 29 letters in his name to be able to succeed. And we want a government that brings people together, brings countries together, brings civilizations together. And so I close with this. The U.S.-India relationship is personal to most of us in this room, and it's personal to me. I believe that this relationship will help define this century and what kind of a world we're going to live in. To me, the closer these two countries are, the less likely that we, as a globe, enter into conflict, the more likely we generate the technologies of the future that help to lift hundreds and billions of people out of poverty, and the more likely that we will be able to sustain ourselves in each of our respective countries. And so when I see what's happening right now, it gives me great consternation, as it does probably to most of you. And so that's why I want all of you to remember that old saying in Washington, D.C., if you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. And unfortunately, many of us and our interests are on the menu today. So I ask you to do 3 things. I need everybody in this room. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, I don't care who you are. I need you to vote because it matters. Secondly, I need you to work on causes bigger than yourself And those might involve bringing our two countries closer together, bringing our peoples together, making sure our institutions are talking to each other. And the third is running for office. It's time to run for office. I want all of you and your loved ones and friends to consider running for office. You know, Neil ran for commissioner of Montgomery County, fortunately in a place where his father was not delivering Republican babies, and he won. But I think everybody should consider running at any level of government, whether it is city council, whether it's the state house, whether it's state senate, whether it's Congress, and yes, whether it's the United States Senate. We need everyone to run at every level to make sure that we pull our seat to the proverbial table and make sure our voices are heard. Are you with me on this? This is basic. Again, I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, it doesn't matter. Because we need to make sure that our voices are heard. We need to make sure our families, our communities, and the full strength and dynamism of our extremely vibrant community is heard. So with that, I just want to close with my favorite saying. Yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery, but today's a gift. That's why we call it the present, MR. And so I just want to celebrate all of you, celebrate how you are doing such great good in your respective communities for not only yourselves and your communities, but for your country and indeed the planet. So thank you so much. God bless all of you. God bless America, and yes, Jai Hind. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Krishnamurthy. I'd like to invite our Executive Director. Oh.
Let's take a couple of questions for the Congressman. Any questions?
Do you have another question? Okay, look, this is a $100,000 tax on H-1Bs, right? I mean, that's basically what's happening. And as Asha ji and I and others were talking about before, basically, no one can afford this. I don't care if you're a small business. And I was with a bunch of small businesses and medium-sized businesses over the weekend. They are freaking out. They can't afford this. But even the largest companies won't foot this bill. Why? Because of the other hurdles that are in the way after you pay the $100,000 for the petition. Look, there's so many hurdles right now between actually filing the petition and actually getting the H-1B worker over here that it's too chancy to pay any amount of money. And so at this point, what we're going to end up doing is basically hampering, kneecapping our own tech industry in America. And at the end of the day, we have to realize this, folks. You either onshore the talent or offshore the jobs. That's the fundamental choice that we have to make. So what I'm saying to my friends and colleagues is, look, you know, we need to develop the indigenous talent here. And we're working on it through skills-based education, career technical educational programs and vocational education, and we're going to continue to do that. But in the meantime, we need to get the best and the brightest, the hardest working people over here, innovating, working in our industry, and creating wealth and prosperity here in America, not abroad.
I'd like to welcome our Executive Director at Indiaspora, Sanjeev Joshipura. Welcome, Sanjeev.
Thank you, Amita. Happy Dashera, happy Gandhi Jayanti, and for those who observe Yom Kippur, Shana Tova. Raja, he's still, oh, there he is, he's just outside. This is not, Indiaspora, of course, is a non-partisan entity, so this is not a partisan statement, but as Neil was saying earlier when he introduced Raja, just in order to, we've known Raja at Indiaspora for a long time. We've talked to him about various different topics. We've talked to him about foreign affairs, about US-India relations, about, the Indian diaspora in the US, domestic political issues, and we've seen how hard he works for his constituency. So not as a partisan political statement, but just as someone who cares deeply about making the Indian American voice heard in American politics and civic and public life. We wish Raja well in his quest for the US Senate. I now have the privilege of introducing a very special guest here today. He is the epitome of what giving means by Indian Americans. He has been a long-time supporter of Indiaspora. I had the good fortune of working at this organization starting in 2016. And when I started, Desh Deshpande, who will come up very shortly, was one of the instrumental supporters of getting Indiaspora off the ground. He was one of our first donors when the organization was started by MR in 2012. But in many, many other ways, whether it is the sandbox in Hubli that Raju referred to earlier today, whether it's E for All, whether it's his generous gift to MIT, his work with Akshay Patra, he has really lifted up countless different lives, so many different lives in India, in America. And he, along with his better half, Srikar Deshpande, who is not with us here today at this event, but who we've also had the pleasure of interacting with on several occasions in Boston and at different Indiaspora events, are really stalwarts and pillars of our community who are admired by one and by all. So with that, Desh, I'd love to invite you up to the stage.
Thank you. Well, good evening. I know you've been sitting there all day, so give me a fun topic to talk about. My topic is, what would Gandhi do if he was here? First of all, he would have been fantastically happy. 75 years ago, it was unimaginable that so many talented people would come together in Silicon Valley, of all the places, to actually start thinking about how can everybody in India do well, which is amazing. And so let's give a hand to Alex and MR and Sanjeev for putting it all together. Because I think wherever the mind is, the action is. And therefore, the fact that so many of you are gathered here to think about the topic, I'm sure will create a lot of new ideas and new actions. And just like Silicon Valley startups, we'll keep reiterating them until we get them right, and we'll have a big impact. And, so what Gandhi believed in, his compass, I think just are as valid today as they were 75 years ago. He believed in truth as a way of life. Is this okay? You hear me okay? Okay. And so, and then I should I just? Hello? 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 Hello, can you hear me okay? Okay. So ahimsa, which is compassion, which is at the bottom of everything, right? It doesn't matter whether it's a for-profit, non-profit, politicians. Compassion is at the bottom of everything that everybody in this room is all about. Because without compassion, you really can't do any good. And then trusteeship, which means, sometimes some people get lucky and make a little bit more money than they need, but that money is not really theirs. It's in some ways, they're trustees of that wealth, trustees of the talent, trustees of the time that they have. And the question is, how do you put it to good use? And finally, seva, whether it's politics or nonprofits or for-profits or economic or spirituality, it's all a question of seva. How do you think about others as opposed to constantly thinking about yourself? And so, in 1948, when Gandhi passed away, we had 350 million people in India. The life expectancy was 35 years, right? So people didn't live very long. There were, we always used to hear when we were young that old people, those people are very strong, very healthy, and that's because it was a natural selection process. If anybody lived up to 50 or 60 or 70, they would obviously be very strong because they got through that thing. But the average life expectancy was 35. And the per capita income was $50, right? So you talk about poverty. And the literacy was about 20%, if you stretch it. And so in 2025, when Gandhiji, if we're here and looking back at it, he would say 1.4 billion people, 70 years life expectancy in India today, and the per capita income has gone up to 3,000. And the literacy rate actually has inched up to 75%. Quality may be questionable, but 75% is the literacy rate. And so he would be actually saying, well, that's pretty good. However, I think he would be very concerned about the fact that the difference between wealth and the divide between haves and the have-nots. The averages are pretty good. But the way the division is happening between haves and have-nots is something that's of big concern to almost everybody in this room. Technological marvels, AI and everything else is going on, but the ethical issues that surround it, and also the violence and polarization, because all the technology is leading to, is really enabling a lot of this stuff. So if he were really alive, he would say, let's really look at the for-profit and the non-profit world. The good thing about the for-profit world is that the capitalism has probably been one of the best things that's happened to the world in the last 50 years. It has lifted millions and millions of people out of poverty, right? All because of the free market economy. And in fact, out of the 8 billion people today, I would say there's probably a good 3 billion people who have disposable income, who live pretty good. I mean, money is not their issue. They have lots of other issues. But there is more than 3 million people. And then the other 5 billion people probably don't have a lot of disposable income, but even there, you can see tiers of people who already are in the middle class and are okay. But then there's a bottom, probably 3 billion people who are really hand to mouth. The good thing about the for-profit is because this is something that everybody here, every Silicon Valley entrepreneur knows. You start with some crazy idea, but then the good thing is within 2-3 years, you have to find a sweet spot where somebody is willing to pay for your crazy idea. And so that feedback loop that you have from the customer back to the idea is just a very, very powerful tool. And even if you find a solution that somebody is willing to pay, you have to keep competing because there's always competition. And so it's that competitive force that really keeps the execution excellence going. You have a restaurant, you serve bad masala dosa for 2 days, you're out of business, right? And so execution excellence is absolutely given. But in that intense competition of keeping up with your top line and the bottom line, the businesses lose compassion. They lose compassion for the environment, they lose compassion for the people, for their customers, for what they do, and so on. And so what happens on the for-profit side, which is very good to lift a lot of people out of the poverty, has execution excellence, but it lacks compassion. But then if you come to the non-profit world, that feedback loop is gone. I mean, non-profits don't start without compassion, right? I mean, without compassion, why would you even start a non-profit? So you start a non-profit, but unfortunately, because the donors are the ones who give money, and it's not the customers who pay the money, the feedback loop between the what you do and how effective it is lost. Because you can always get a few beneficiaries to give you a fantastic video, right? I mean, that's not a big deal. You can just pay them. So because of that feedback loop is lost, there is no execution excellence. So as a result of that, both in US and India, there are 3 million NGOs, 3 million nonprofits each. India has 3 million, US has 3 million. Out of which, in India, there's probably less than 20 of them which have a budget of more than 50 crores. Even in US, there's probably less than 200 that have a budget of more than 50 million, which means because here, once somebody starts a company, a nonprofit organization, it doesn't have to die. Because if you did 100 this year, next year you got a little bit less money, you just did one, it's okay. It never dies. So there is no mergers and acquisitions, there is no bankruptcy, so it's just a land of the living dead. And so there's probably about 99% of the nonprofits which are totally useless. And they won't go away because there's nothing that forces them to go away, right? They just survive. So what would Gandhi do? Gandhi would say, well, the for-profit, it's a good mechanism. It lifts people out of the poverty. It gets things very efficient and they execute excellence. But let's make sure that we inject a lot of compassion in there. And then for the nonprofit, they would say, let's see if we can bring execution excellence to what the nonprofits do. And that's what most of the people in this room can contribute, because all of you come from running these highly competitive businesses and you know what execution excellence is. So if ever you can team up with people who have the compassion for helping other people, I think you could contribute tremendously in making sure that this happens. Same thing happens with politicians, like Raja. They have compassion, but they also have a competition. But unfortunately, their competition is a little too intense. Raja Krishnamoorthi, he has to compete every 2 years. So does he compete to survive, or does he focus on doing things that he really wants to get done, right? That's why he's smart. He's now saying, I don't want to compete every 2 years, maybe I'll compete once in 6 years. So the message, I think what Gandhiji would say is that, trusteeship, not charity. That is, I think whenever you help other people, there has to be dignity to it, right? I mean, it's not really a money that you're giving away. You're really trying to make sure that you empower dignity and livelihood. That is, any nonprofit which just makes people more and more dependent on you is not a good thing. Any nonprofit where the more successful you are, the more dependent people become on you, it's not a good nonprofit. A good nonprofit is the one where people start becoming more and more independent, you bring about a systemic change, and you work yourself out of business. That's where things are a little different than the for-profit. In the for-profit, you constantly want to guard your market share, you want to hang on to that customer, you want to make the customer depend more and more on you, right? Here it's the other way around, actually. You want them not the market share, but the impact share. And to get that impact share, you want people to become less dependent on you. In fact, that was one of the big questions on the previous panel on scale and depth. So my take on that is, there are lots of problems in the world. And it depends on whether you scale or you go deep, depends on the nature of the organization. For example, there are some people who are extremely talented, but they're so deep in compassion that they want to give everything away. So they go to some remote village in somewhere, Africa or India, and then they start helping people there. And the question typically they tend to answer, because of the deep compassion, is that who is the one who needs the most help? And the person who needs the most help is obviously the one which is the most complex case, right? And so by the time they help them, they'll probably do everything they can to help those people, but they can help maybe 5 people, 10 people in their whole life. We need those people too, because they are the champions of compassion. It's those people whose compassion rubs off on other people, and you really see these people so genuine about wanting to help. But then people who come with systems thinking, technology, system change, all these things, they should think about it a little bit differently. And so they should not start with asking the question, who is the one who needs the most help? They should be asking the question, it's a little bit more like building a company. You want, the first product you build should be an MVP, not the most complex one, right? So you build an MVP, you come up with a a simple thing that can make a change, but that change will only apply to a segment of the market, only to a segment of the people. Let me give you one example where we do the skilling program where a lot of the young men and women from villages and talukas, they go to colleges and they go through 15 years of education, get a BA, BCom, BSc, and not a single person from that college gets a job, right? So we have a program where we can whip them into shape and get them a job, and they make anywhere from 2.5 to 4 lakhs a year. So it's not a lot of money, but it's a life-changing experience for them. It turns out that if you go to a college in a village, the top 1/3 of the students, we can almost place them 100%. The next 1/3 of the people, well, maybe 60, 70%. The bottom 1/3, 0, right? So the question is, if you can just work on that minimum intervention that you have and keep perfecting it, making it better, cheaper, faster every year, just like you would do in a business, if you can help 1/3 of the people that are graduating from villages in India, that's millions and millions, right? So the thinking is, it still starts with a compassion, but with a slightly different bent to it, right? I mean, that's where I think people who have built a lot of companies and methodically make their product more and more complex, but not start with the most complex product, I think are the ones who will scale these solutions. And in fact, scale it also, I think the other thing that I heard was through partnership, which is absolutely the right thing to do. So for example, we run that program in about 75 colleges, and now the colleges are coming forward to do the programs themselves. And hopefully, over the course of next 5 to 10 years, it'll become a part of the curriculum in these colleges, and we don't have to do that anymore, right? So every nonprofit is there to bridge the gap between the way it should be and the way it is. And the smaller the gap, the better is your chance that you'll be successful in actually bridging it. And once you bridge it, then all the other partners, governments, and everything else, if they all embrace that solution, you want to happily give it away. You don't want to own it because you don't want the market share. You don't want the burden, right? I mean, you just want to help those people. So Gandhi was not anti-technology, but he was pro-human. So when we think about technology, we should also think about how technology can help everybody, right? But I think what I found is that when you help people at the very bottom of the pyramid, like Karya or like anybody else at the bottom, they don't really need the earth-shattering technology, right? What they need is the most relevant technology. And so actually spending time there, immersing yourself in the problems, because there's no way you can build a company if you don't understand your customer, right? And none of us sitting in a room like this and having the level of standard of living that we all have here can ever understand how a person on $1 a day lives, right? That's not possible. So you have to co-create the solution with them. You have to immerse yourself in that environment, and you have to build the capacity within that community to actually come up with the right solutions. And of course, the social media, I think that could benefit a lot from Gandhiji because right now it's just being used absolutely for the opposite of what you would want to do. Well, so, I think Gandhiji, in our own way, I and my wife, Jayshree, have been trying to practice seva as much as we can. And so we use entrepreneurship as a platform, as Raju talked about. And so we did quite a bit in universities in USA, Canada, and we're doing that large program in India now, where we're trying to, because India is now spending 100,000 crores a year, but not much comes out of it. So we have a program which we're replicating from United States, which has been a very successful program here, to make that investment have a lot more impact. And then the sandbox that Raja Reddy talked about in Hubli and Nizamabad, where we do a whole bunch of programs. But we also have a program in US called E4All, Entrepreneurship for All. This is for the bottom 20% of the population. We have about 2,100 companies now, trying to scale it up to 50,000 companies so that it becomes a category of its own. these are not high-tech unicorns. These are companies where they hire maybe 1, 5, 10 people. And so it just creates all the employment opportunities for the people who are being left behind. And then Akshay Patra. So I would say in closing this session, I would say let's just practice Gandhi's principles. You know, they're just as relevant today as they were. You know, he always believed in countries being self-reliance. That's becoming even more important now with all the tariffs and everything else, right? So we have to build economies that can sustain themselves. We have to build a philanthropy that uplifts everybody, not just few. And then we should use technology to heal, not harm. And then embrace trusteeship and service. And actually, if we did all this, I think Gandhiji will be smiling. We have time for a few questions?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Questions?
Yeah.
What's the right time to start this?
I would say there's only 3 things each one of us can give, right? One is money, one is time, another one is your expertise, your talent. And I think a lot of the people here who have done startups, they understand how hard it is doing startups and everything else. But doing nonprofit is 10 times as hard. So I would say start budgeting the 3 things to whatever extent you can. It can be as small as you think it is, but you start right now, right after tomorrow. If you're not already started the journey, start it tomorrow. Whatever little you can give, you should just give it away every year. And it'll take a long time before you actually learn how to do it right. What you don't want to do is, and I've seen that happen sometimes, people, they get lucky, they go public or whatever, they make some money, and suddenly they want to give a lot of time and a big chunk, and they think it'll solve the problem. But in nonprofit, problems don't go away that quickly. And then they become bitter. And then once they become bitter and get burnt, they're useless to themselves and they're useless to the rest of the world. So don't do that, you know. So inch slowly and carefully into that sector so that you learn how to do it and you enjoy it, you know. Then you learn how to do it and then you actually benefit from it. Come on.
We were in New York last week, and the word collaboration came up repeatedly. And I think it also came up repeatedly today too. And I think in a way, your example is a good example of what's going on between you and Reddy, great deal of collaboration. I wonder if you would like to comment on that. I think which is very important for smaller organizations to deal with the complex problems we are facing, and especially if those NGOs are working in the same area.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. You know, I think unfortunately the world, you know, after the World War II, the US took the lead in really bringing the whole thing together, right? So it was always a multilateral agreements on everything. And suddenly in this new thing, it's all bilateral agreements, and which is like really messing up collaboration between a lot of other things. But within the nonprofit world, I think we all have to learn how to work together. And what makes it very hard is that every nonprofit is started by a very, very compassionate person. It's like a very compassionate entrepreneur. And he can never collaborate with anybody else. Because his idea is the best idea, right? There's no idea that can be better than his. And so it's very hard to sort of collaborate, give up, do mergers and acquisitions and everything else. But we have to learn how to do that. Otherwise, I don't think, I don't know if there is some financial wizards here can come up with a way to extinguish non-performing nonprofits. But I think if there is a forcing function there, maybe it'll happen. Yeah.
Asking that question now on the other side. You talked about for-profits developing more compassion and non-profits developing more execution excellence. The latter is beginning to happen
given very often it's a race to the bottom on those kinds of things, and if so, where, how?
Well, I think it's a question of, people who become leaders have to keep injecting that into it, right? And there was a lot of talk about how the purpose and the profits have to go together. Otherwise the younger people would not stay with the corporation. So for the last 10 years or so, there was a lot of this momentum behind company, not just chasing the profits, but a profit, purpose, and people. But right now, it's getting so challenging that people may lose compassion, and we need to make sure that we bring the compassion back. So I think it's a constant effort. I mean, I don't know if the job will ever be done. I think what's given is that a for-profit company without execution excellence is dead, is gone, right? At least the good thing is it'll be gone. A non-profit without compassion is totally useless. But a non-profit, even without compassion, doesn't go away, unfortunately. It can still survive. And so constantly we have to keep injecting this execution excellence in the non-profit and the compassion in the for-profit.
Thank you. Deshji, how do you think about balancing giving to causes back home versus giving where you live?
Well, I think the world has so many problems. It's very easy to get paralyzed as to which is the best place to give. I think it's always, is it the starving, deserving kid in Africa, in India? Is it the most talented kid in a village who doesn't have the opportunity? Is it animals? Is it, tree, environment, whatever? And so you can get paralyzed. So ultimately you have to go where your heart is, right? And I would say, the path we have taken is that we're doing both. And we find that they're very synergistic. In fact, all the high-tech stuff that we did here actually went back to India, but all the nonprofit stuff that we did in India is what came back here to US. So there's a lot of learning to be had because they all have very common elements. But start somewhere.
Sorry. Hi, Desh. I have a question for you. How does hope function as a force for unity in a very polarized world? And what does meaningful hope look like in a very divided society? Thank you.
Well, in fact, hope is everything, right? I mean, that's what I love about entrepreneurs. Every entrepreneur, he faces a problem, he goes to bed, next day morning he wakes up and he thinks he's got an absolute solution. He'll try it that day, unfortunately it may not work, but he'll again go back to bed, next day morning he'll wake up and he'll think he has a solution. So it's almost like you're living every day of your life hoping that tomorrow is better than today. Whether it's real or not, doesn't matter. That's a great way to live a life, right? And what happens is that when problems become chronic, the problems become very hard. In fact, that's how we get impoverished communities, impoverished nations, impoverished companies. When the problems become overwhelming, there'll be a few entrepreneurs who will try to solve it, they cannot, and then they feel victimized, and then they feel helpless, and then they start complaining. And then what happens is that the primary culture is one of complaining because it's hopelessness, right? And so the only way you pull communities or anybody, any group out of that part of it is to convert complainers into problem solvers. In fact, that's what this E for all is all about. Same thing in India, but here, the bottom 20% of the population, it's hopeless, right? If you go to East Palo Alto or any of these communities. But you work on you identify maybe 4 or 5 entrepreneurs who can actually do something, and they start a business and they start doing well. All their neighbors, cousins, friends, they all start doing it. And so we've been doing this now for 15 years. So in some of the communities, we have maybe 200 businesses. And so once you get to like 150, 200, the culture changes because it becomes dominant. It's very much like tech entrepreneur. When I was starting my first company in 87 or whatever, there were 5 or 6 entrepreneurs in all of Massachusetts, right? There was Digital Equipment Corporation, DG, DEC, Wang, Prime, something like that, only 4 or 5. It wasn't like the big thing. The biggest venture capital firm was maybe $3 million, right? And so it wasn't there. But look what's happened in the last 40, 50 years. The whole ecosystem has developed and becoming it's fashionable to start companies. So if you go to Stanford or MIT or any of these places, I mean, every kid is chopping at the bit to solve something. But the end result of that is that not everybody will get an opportunity to solve a problem because there's not those many problems, but there'll never be a problem that hangs around in those communities too long because there's so many people chopping at the bits to solve the problem, right? So I think the best thing all of us can do is when you see a place that's hopeless, you slowly start changing the culture of that organization. And changing that culture cannot be a top-down thing. It's not a politician announcing that hereafter everybody shall be an entrepreneur. You have to actually go there and work hard to make a few successful, and then a few more. And what I've learned is we also run a large university network. And what I found is that 1/3 of the people, if you can convert, you caused a change. Because 1/3 will embrace it, another 1/3 will be saying, okay, unwilling, but they will embrace it. The bottom 1/3 will never will. So you almost have to wait for a generational change for that to catch up. But if you can actually change 1/3 of the population to this new excitement of actually solving problems, I think you brought about a systemic change. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're running out of time.
Yeah, we'll get a quick picture.
Great. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Desh. Let me now call on stage Shannon Paz, the CEO of Antara International, and Ushri, who is a director with VFF USA. They're going to just deliver some closing remarks about the day. Welcome.
What a day, right? What a day. We have a huge job of wrapping up this day, which will be impossible to do in a few minutes, but we'll just share some themes and kind of high-level takeaways that we both had from listening to these remarkable speakers today. So Ushri, please lead us.
Yeah, I'll start with my biggest takeaway from this one is Shruti Deora's message. And she highlighted that, like less than 2% of the global giving goes to climate issues. And in India, it is less than 1%, though the country loses 5% of its GDP to extreme heat. And that's a wake-up call for all of us.
Excellent. A few other themes here. I think in the session on overhead and if that is an effective way to measure nonprofits, one of the key lines that someone said was transparency equals trust. And I think that's applicable both to the nonprofit sector, to the corporate sector, but to all of us as humans moving about the world. And this message at the end of the day about compassion and how we can all lead and walk through the world with compassion ran through many of the sessions. I think we heard a lot about youth and the power of potential in the next generation, both in terms of what they can contribute from a philanthropic perspective, but also in terms of their ideas and their contributions that are going to help solve our major issues of today.
Yeah, and talking about youth, we all enjoyed Anish and Isha's session with Ishita. Yeah, and it truly shows, like if young people like them, they have the passion and authentic connection, how is going to shape the future of philanthropy?
Excellent. And a few last closing remarks. I think one of the sessions talked about keeping the end user in mind and thinking about that, again, from a corporate perspective, but also in the nonprofit world. Who are we ultimately trying to serve? Who are we ultimately trying to uplift? And how do we not lose sight of that in our day-to-day? Our last two speakers, I can do no justice in summarizing them, but I think, the call to civic engagement and examining what is your why is something that we can all walk away from this day really thinking about. And from Desh, what would Gandhi do? Calling for the leading with compassion and for execution excellence. I think that is something that, again, we can all really think about how we apply that to our day-to-day. So without further ado, I think we'll wrap and hand over to Shobha and Alex for closing remarks. Thank you all.
We are through. Congratulations to all of us who are here the whole day. I think the spirit of public conversation is what we were going for. So particularly appreciative of those of you who attended multiple sessions and helped thread the conversations together, because there was so much interconnectedness in the themes that emerged. And this is what we had hoped for. And Slido did help us. And it was lovely to have your voices in conversation. Thank you for all of that. I think the excellent summary was on point. I just want to say that this is something I heard last week, and it's worth reiterating as a theme this week, that people, planet, and partnerships are my key words that I'm going to leave with in terms of what we do with where we center our work, and I hope there are things that you take away too. Alex, I know you wanted to share something, then I'll go about Forum for Good, or how do you want to do this? I'll finish that off, okay. If you enjoyed today, and I heard many people say that they did, this energy of people coming together to have discussions, know that this is key to Indiaspora's work. We bring people together for these kind of conversations. India-focused philanthropy is one of our programmatic areas. We also work on philanthropy in terms of giving where you live, also nonpartisan political and civic engagement, and innovation and entrepreneurship. And we hold other forums. And this year we did a Forum for Good, our inaugural Forum for Good in Abu Dhabi in late February. It was attended by global leaders from 35 countries, people like you with great commitment and enthusiasm for purpose.
And it was awesome.
The queue worked without even planning that, I think. So we are planning the next one now in March in Bangalore, 22nd through 25th. Would love to see many of you there. If you enjoyed today, it's bigger and better. Hope to see many of you there that day. Alex, it's been such a pleasure doing this with IPA, Alex and the team. We can't thank you all enough for making it come true to what we had envisioned. So thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Shobha. Wow. So yeah, you can clap for her. There's no law against that. We did it. This really exceeded my expectations, and I had, when you're in planning something like this with a team that we've not really worked on something this intense before, you have some nights where you have dreams of it turning out great, and then you have other nights where you have different kind of dreams. And this really, the way it worked out, we tried a lot of stuff. Most of it worked. Look how full this room is at 5:30 on a, normally at a conference like this, it's 2/3 empty by this point. We kept to our time almost. What's wrong with you? It sounds like I'm patting myself on the back, but I'll tell you, sometimes people that I mentor, they'll ask me a question, something like this. I gave the same speech twice, once one week and once the next week. And one week it was great, and the other week it bombed, same speech. And I said, what was different? It was the audience. It's the quality of, sometimes people want to be in a great conference. They want to learn from a speaker. They want to make it, and that's what you guys brought to this. And I thank you. I want to just, and by the way, also it's quality of the audience. It's also the quality of the team. My team was here. You guys did most of the work. And every time I sat there saying, oh my God, this is someone working on this? And it was like, oh yeah, they are. They just solved that. And we were throwing some technology issues that came up last minute, all solved. It was brilliant. And Neha Gupta was so awesome. Where's Neha? She left? Bring her back. I'll just say a couple other things. So Deepak Raj was supposed to be here, our chairman of IPA, who's a great friend of Indian Diaspora, Indian American Impact, Pratham, you name it. I'll just say something, I wish he was here to say this, but we have agreed, he's terming out as our chairman, and with Jay coming in, and fill big shoes, and we got his blessing about a week ago to name a new award in his name that will be given out each India Giving Day and I thought maybe like a Lifetime Achievement Award where he could kind of give it out to people like Desh and people like of his generation who'd done great work. And he said, I want to create an award for like a next gen, under 40, rising star in our community in this India American philanthropy. So we haven't had much time in the last few weeks since he agreed to like, how do people get nominated and all that. We're going to work it out. But on India Giving Day next year, we are going to have the first Deepak Raj Rising Star Award, and it may be to someone in this room. So, now, speaking of India Giving Day, which I know, it might be the person sitting next to you, if they're under 40. And we're gonna check birth certificates, by the way. No. So India Giving Day coming up in March. So I know some of you are very familiar with it. If you're not, we opened up applications for organizations that want to be listed on our site for donations today. It closes October 31st. But there are many, many ways to participate that don't involve being listed on our site. But it's a fun thing to do. So think about it. But last year we had a breakthrough year, 2,600 donations on one day, $8.8 million. We targeted 400 peer-to-peer fundraisers, mostly young people, and we got exactly 400 peer-to-peer fundraisers. I don't know how that worked out. So yeah, you can clap for that too. You just got the idea. So, but you know, we really want to cross $10 million, but one donation last year alone was $5 million. So we've got a lot. We gotta have like somewhere like under the cushions of our couches. We need to find like a missing $5 million grant to make up for, so we can cross that bridge. But I hope all of you design a way to participate in India Giving Day this March 13th that works for you. Maybe it's to give the largest donation you've ever given in your life, whether that's $100 or $100 million. Maybe it's about having two families over to dinner and each person talking about what philanthropy means to them. Maybe it's about reading a book on philanthropy and writing about it on your LinkedIn page. Maybe it's something else, but just have that day, mark it on your calendar and have that day be something special about philanthropy for you. Lastly, I'll just say that the communique, we're going to leave that open for a couple more days. We got some good feedback, and we're going to send out a link to all of you by email and just help us communicate to the world the work we did here today, and hopefully that we'll be gathering again around this time here or on the East Coast or who knows where, maybe Hawaii. Why not? I don't know. Last thing, just a couple of things. I want to say thank you to the two people who worked their hearts out for this more than anyone else and still are working at this very moment. Amita. And oh, so but you birthday to you. Okay. I also want to thank, where's Nirmala? Just stand up, Nirmala. You did so much brilliant work on this, day and night for months. It's just amazing. I want to ask, almost done here, I want to ask the planning committee, the entire planning committee to stand up. If you are on the planning committee for this, or if you're standing, raise your hand. Nalini, yes, Ushri. Yeah. So thank you so much. And MR was an amazing ally who made this happen, and I guess he's stepped out. But really, I want to thank also just the Srikar Foundation, Jay. There was a time where we were sitting here. I said, I don't know if IPA can really do our part in this. We need a grant that's really going to give us the capital to do it. And Jay came up to me on a break at our retreat and says, we're in for that. And lastly, I just want to thank all of you for making this such a special experience.